happening, lads and lassies, and welcome back to the channel. And there's a lot more of you now, thanks to our main man, Critical Drinker. So a big shout out to him, because we do see you. We've seen your comments, and thank you a lot for that. Also, we're back. We're now with a new series for Halloween. It's called Halloween Havoc. And we're starting off in Danny's neck of the woods, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
I just wanted to do that. But yeah, man, first off, before we get this video started, shout out to the Critical Drinker once again, man. Shout out to people from the drinker side of the internet. Shout out to the Fellowship, and shout out to G&G, and also Young Ripper and all of them, man. Appreciate it for letting us be part of your guys' stuff. And man, let's get this video started, my friend.
Yes. So this probably won't be as long. These videos aren't going to be the typical dynamic duels that you've got used to, or if you're new, that you're going to get used to. Normally, how we break these sort of movies down is go scene by scene and things, but because it's in the Halloween tradition, it's a spirit. This movie is from 1974. If we're going to be realistic, if you haven't seen it, then what are you doing? You're not a horror fan. So, one thing that I can say about this movie that I didn't think I'd end up saying is, holy shit, it's a slow build this time around. And that's the thing. Like, I love this movie because it's such a classic. And ironically, I've been playing the game recently, so I know the lore, but the fact that it was such a slow build, some of the cinematography was horrifically 70s, you could tell. The one thing that I'm going to say straight off the bat is that this movie is definitely fucking dated. But that's what makes it such a cult classic for its time, though, was because it was the first time, it was based loosely on a true story from someone who was in Texas, ironically, that done very horrible things. But at the time, they pegged it as based on a true story. This is when Hollywood would get away with that stuff. Now we know it's loosely based on a true story, but most of it is just fictional.
Yeah.
But for me, the thing that makes this maybe still stand the test of time and things is that it plays more into the psychological horror than it does more graphic, gory horror. There is gore in it, but compared to the latter entries and a lot of other horror movies, this one's very tame compared to them. There is a few slashing and stabbings and chainsaws and stuff, or a few mallets to the head, but it's mostly focusing on the psychological aspect of it. And obviously, we're with a group of teenagers supposedly, but they all look about 40 and they've been smoking 60 cigarettes a day, it's not very believable, but back then that's what teenagers apparently looked like. So we've got the main cast, we've got the survival girl, the blue top blonde woman, the more revealing brunette one, we've got the nice guy in a wheelchair, and then we've also got dude that looks like he's out of a 70s movie that you should not search up. Anyway. But anyway,
Jerry Springer.
Don't, very similar name, but different category. So also, one of the things that I found really funny about rewatching this movie back is that the first scene in this movie is legitimately just a disabled guy peeing in a can, and it's just okay, it's not very unique stylistic, but it is a unique stylistic choice, I guess. But it's a bit of a weird one to take, but that's what makes it funny. There's a lot of things. This is where we get the iconic family. We get the hitchhiker, we get the cook, and we obviously get Grandpa, who looks like an old wrinkly boss act. But let's move it on. But see, that's the thing. A lot of the time when it comes to these old movies, man, it's rewatching them now. Obviously, especially since I've watched it multiple times, and I've searched into the background of these movies. It's not scary anymore, but it's one of those.
It's just funny.
Yeah, it's just funny these days. For one, Leatherface doesn't actually look all too scary in this one. Compared to the later entries and stuff, Like it just looks like he's got a bit of like cloth hanging from his face 9 times out of 10. So
Yeah.
you can say what you want. I'm not going to take the piss out of the movie too much because I know it's a cult classic and it is good. But see some of the
Yeah.
stuff that you do see in this movie, it's ridiculous. It's quite funny, but it's ridiculous.
It's pretty like it is a product of its time, man. Like the camera angles, like the cinematography, like yeah. Mm. Will I rewatch this again? Probably not. Only unless it's like with you or whatever, or somebody of the other guys. But yeah, this was a
Yeah.
product of its time. I mean, I
See,
can't be too hard on it.
See, for me, obviously, I'm an old school horror fan, and going forward,
Yeah,
we will be having a little teaser. That's another thing that we are keeping, even though it's a newer thing, is that we do teases at the end. So stick around for that because you're gonna enjoy those. But anyway, for me specifically, what I think makes this movie even like good to begin with was that back then when it came to back then they didn't have phones, they didn't have sat navs, they had maps, they had horrible cameras. This could genuinely
yeah,
happen in your neighborhood, and it could have genuinely happened in
yeah,
Texas. Ironically, I've got a
yeah,
Texan with me, so it just kind of works out that way.
yeah,
So
yeah,
what I do find interesting about the movie is that they did use the psychological effects. So the main survivor
mm-hmm,
girl, like you see her like going for rough everything, like legitimately. By the end of this movie, she needs a shrink, and I don't mean like
yeah,
a shrink in the sense of like just a normal shrink. I mean like she needs to be locked up for about 20 years before she can get back out, because
yeah,
you know the thing is that it plays more into that because they torture people. It turns out the family's a
yeah,
bunch of cannibals, and obviously Leatherface wears their cuts people's faces off, and
mm-hmm,
um wears their face. I know that YouTube probably won't like me saying this, but luckily enough for me, I'm not monetized, so we don't need to worry about that. So it is what it is.
yeah.
But
We're on the dark side of YouTube. If
yeah,
you catch my drift.
who are those guys? Anyway, um, but that's the psychological like statement with this movie is really good, and it shows you like the effects of something like this if it did happen to someone like you like cared about or things, and it is quite depressing and sad in a lot of ways, but at the same time it does play into that sort of shock horror, like oh my god, like this is
Are
happening,
they
people
gonna
know
make it?
about it. Yeah, people know it, people know what's happening, are they going to make it out? um
Yeah,
then half the town's in on it, so how are they supposed to escape, and then
yeah,
I guess we could get near the end of this because this has been quite a fun, quick thing. Um,
yeah,
by the time we get to the end of it, we get to see one of my favorite scenes of all time, which is obviously her getting chased by the hitcher, and obviously Leatherface. Her back is like destroyed at this point. Not gonna lie, like it
yeah.
is definitely destroyed. But then, ironically, Danny, I think you're gonna have to say this one, but a certain person comes to the rescue, which is ironic because this entire movie's been filled with white people. So yeah,
I'll just say this. Shout out to my man Shamoon and all the rest of the Kings. Big old black man coming down the street. Shout out to RJ.
yeah. So
Literally a big old black man.
exactly. So he comes to the rescue, but then somewhat screws up as well. Like I thought he should have just drove away, but for suspense takes, like he climbed out the truck and then chucked a hammer at Leatherface and hit him in the head, knocked him out a wee bit,
Yeah.
and then he
It's a
chainsawed his
monkey
own
wrench.
leg.
Yeah.
So he legitimately chainsawed his leg. So
Yeah.
dumbass. Anyway,
I mean, if you want to be like 100, like I highly recommend you just go watch the mid 2000s one of this one. I think they did it a little bit better. The one with Jessica Biel, like it's a
mhm.
little bit better. I mean, it's more okay. I'll put it this way: like it's more brutal, and it still has that psychological feeling. Like I think like the mid 2000s one did a little bit better, in my opinion. Yeah,
See, this is where I know the horror fans are going to come for you because everybody else that I'm aware of, other than maybe one and two, any other one of them, so some of them have went down well, like Leatherface went down well, which is just titled Leatherface, but the rest
yeah.
of them were correctly panned and called the biggest pile of shit they've ever seen. So that's his views, not mine. So like I prefer
That's
the.
just how I feel.
I'm obviously going to prefer the original, but that's just because I'm a
Yeah,
OG person. It's the same with like Halloween or Scream or those types of movies.
yeah.
I always prefer the
It's
original.
my
You know,
opinion.
the granddad stuff was quite funny as well because obviously
Yeah.
like he just looks like an old testicle, and they're like, oh, he's the best. He's been the best killer in the family, and he can't even hold a hammer. So
Yeah, man. I really don't got nothing else to say about it. Like,
yeah.
I'm fresh out of ideas, but I think maybe this summer, maybe we can, like, what did you do last summer? Maybe like we can probably do something like that. I don't know.
Potentially, yeah. Also, I'm pretty sure Fred from Scooby Doo will be making a cameo if that's the case. Anyway,
Yeah.
this has been a short and sweet video, but before we go again, I want to thank you to everyone that came over and started subscribing and things. There is going to be longer videos, and they're going to be a bit more in detail. This was just a wee quick fun one for Halloween to kick us off, and the other movies will have a bit more to say because obviously this one is a bit older and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Well, I have been Kane and Wolf. That has been MMA King Crease Jr. And we shall see you in the next video.